2 minutes.
Lane assignments for event number 78, the Women's Collegiate 4 with Coxon Grand Final. In lane 1, University of Virginia, 2, University of Tennessee, 3, Washington State University, 4, University of California, Los Angeles, 5, University of Washington, 6, University of Southern California. There's quite a few intermittent gusts down here, so you can see a lot of sculling going on just to keep these bows pointed down the course. The aligner's flag is up.
Virginia, Tennessee.
The starter is now announcing the cruise.
UCLA.
After she says
Washington,
University of Southern California,
USC.
it'll be attention, go.
Attention, go!
There's the start. Event number 78, Women's Collegiate 4 plus Coxon. No problems off the start for all 6 crews. Of course, with only 4 people rowing instead of 8, it's going to be slower. Coxon sitting up in the bow, looks across to see where they stand. Early race leader, oops, UCLA has some problems. I think they hit a buoy back there. But your early race leader is over in lane 1, the Cavaliers from the University of Virginia. 4-seat advantage over Washington State. Then after that, it's USC out here in lane 6. Then Washington. Then shifting back into the University of Tennessee, and UCLA trails. All crews now into their race pace, establishing that rhythm, trying to squeeze out as much distance per stroke as they can. It's still in lane 1, your race leader, Virginia, now with about a 4-seat advantage over Washington State. After that, the Trojans out here in lane 6 are in the 3rd spot. And then it's the Huskies in lane 5, followed by the Volunteers of Tennessee, and UCLA, having that problem with the buoy early on in the race, is in that final 6th position. Coming up to the first quarter pole, the first 500 meters of the race, strong gust just hit us. It's going to be Virginia in lane 1, your race leader, followed by Washington State University, the Trojans in 3rd, Then it's Huskies. The Bruins are fighting right back into it now. In fact, they are in that 4th position. Then it's Tennessee. So UCLA is trying to make up for that little bobble they had when they ran into that buoy.
The form crew in this race from yesterday's results is in lane 3, Washington State University. They did a 7:29. Then the next best performed crew from yesterday is actually the crew out in lane 6, USC, who did a 7:31, and it's those crews and the University of Virginia, who did a time of 7:37, as did UCLA yesterday, who have got a little bit of separation on the rest of the field. So this is one of those races where we might actually see the lead changing hands between the far sides of the race course.
All times aside, Charles, in preliminary heats, every now and then somebody has a tendency to drop off, especially if they have something in hand. So maybe you might comment about the strategy in that one.
Yes, generally speaking, that's true. No one's going to put more effort in the heat than they need to. But on this race course, where lanes can play a significant part in your chances of success, every crew would have raced every stroke as hard as they could in the heats, because they wanted to make sure they gave themselves the best opportunity for a good lane in the final.
Well, despite the fact that lane number 6 might not be the choicest area, USC is making a little bit of a contest out of it all the way out there. Virginia and Washington State on the lead in the early going here. The Bruins moving along there smoothly.
And it's Virginia coming up to the 1,000-meter mark, who have a lead of about a length over Washington State. They're going to come out from behind the protection of Vacation Island in about 2 or 3 strokes. And then we'll see who deals with the rougher water better.
Virginia on the lead there in lane number 1. And they have almost a boat length lead there. Lane 2. Or check that, lane 3 is Washington State. And they are pressing on. They have not lost contact, of course. Tennessee has dropped back considerably. UCLA has recovered rather admirably from their early difficulties. SC on the far outside, and then Washington back in the same category as Tennessee. Virginia in the shoreline side is in the lead. Washington State and now UCLA beginning to move up on Washington State. Not a tremendous move, but at least they're hanging in there, where maybe with a stretch drive they might be able to make a difference in this particular contest. This is the Women's Collegiate 4s with Coxon. It is the grand final, event number 78.
Very difficult to tell exactly where USC are at the moment in terms of where Washington State and Virginia are. But UCLA are putting a big effort in after their early difficulties in the middle of the race. The early parts of the race, they're putting in a big effort now in the middle part. But Virginia seemed to be holding that distance on Washington State at the moment. When we last saw, it was about a length. It was sort of on, as Washington State were on the surge, they'd have overlap with Virginia. As Virginia were on the surge, Virginia had clear water. Now we're looking at it, and we're seeing that there is about a length and a third distance, maybe even a length and a half, Virginia over Washington State.
Virginia here on the shoreline, and they have led almost throughout, and ever so slightly with each stroke seems to edge a little bit farther forward. Washington State now having to contend on their outside shoulder with UCLA, who has made an admirable comeback so far. And then all the way on the outside is USC. Tennessee has moved up somewhat, and University of Washington has dropped back. So this is Virginia, but now there's a bug tussle going on between Washington State and UCLA out in lanes 3 and 4. Virginia along the shoreline. USC on the move on the far outside, but maybe too little too late. Tennessee and then Washington. Virginia with their bright orange and the white shell moving along 4s with Coxon. Virginia, Washington State, UCLA unable to come back as they wish they had been able to stay on course. USC, Tennessee, and Washington at the finish line. It is Virginia. Washington State coming in on that second position with a little open water between them and the first place boat. UCLA will apparently be our third place winner. Tennessee came up strongly towards the end. USC on the far outside, and then Washington. Here's our winner, Virginia. And they led it pretty much throughout. Washington State kept losing ever so little amount of ground, but they did it the entire length of the race course. And so the Virginia crew is the winner of the SeaWorld Cal Cup in the women's collegiate category 4 width.
Iowa, Tulsa. Attention, go!
Lane assignments for event number 79, Women's Collegiate Varsity 8 Grand Final. 1, Duke University. 2, Oregon State University. 3, University of Oklahoma. 4, University of San Diego.